All right, folks, we'll be starting in just a moment. Thanks for your patience. Hello there. My name is Mary-Jeanine, and I'm coming to you live from the sewing studio in Fabric Superstore in Maitland, Florida. Welcome. If you are here live, I'd love to see your comments as to where you're coming from. Orlando and Winter Park and Miami Shores and Holiday, Florida, Lakeland, Florida. Sometimes we get people from out of the state, out of the country, and we love that. So please continue to let us know where you're from. We are here in Maitland, and you may be watching live or you may be watching later on, either one. Glad to have you. If you're watching live, you can comment, you can ask questions. Hi, Mo. Sorry we missed you this morning. If you're here in town at 10 o'clock on the fourth Saturday of every month, would love to see your face at our face-to-face version of this exact thing. But if you are scattered far and wide or can't get out of the house, this is a good alternative, and you get nice up close and personal with all the cameras we've got going on. So I love that. We're going to continue doing this for a really long time because we love bringing this out to the wider world. So ask lots of questions. Bartow, Florida, Washington State. Wow. Okay. You win the prize so far, Cynthia. You're the farthest. Let's see who else is out there. I've got a couple quick announcements. We don't have any shop hops or anything, do we, Gabriella? Not today. So quick announcements. I've got a binding class coming up if you're in town on May 30th. That's this Thursday. There's a few openings. My Finish It Up class looks like it might be a go this time, and that means you can bring any project that you've taken in my class. You can come and finish it up. So Gabriella is putting in the comments my handout, so you can pull that up on a separate screen or you can print it out. She's putting up the Le Breton, that's one of my sister's last name. I had to check to see it wasn't her. And then she's also going to put up a link to my favorites page. So all the tools that I talk about today, if you want to add them to your sewing room, then you can click on that and it'll be all the things that I've been talking about are on my favorites page. 20% off today. So make your purchases today till tomorrow night, or is it Monday? 20% off. We're not sure. We'll find out. Anyway, buy it now. It's 20% off. And any other links that we may have, we will put up there. So check that handout, pull that up. I won't be talking about the handout right away, so you have some time to either print it out or pull it up on another device. So that today is the 25th. Yes, so that today is the 20%. So buy your items today while you're thinking about it. So, and then just calendaring, I will be here in June, at the end of June, and then I won't be here in July. I'll be back in August. So love to see you face-to-face or on YouTube, Facebook in June. And so because I'll have just gotten back from a big trip, I won't have enough time to build brand new content like I usually do. So I'm going to bring one of my favorite programs, which is MJ's 11 favorite projects. There's some quilts, there's some non-quilt sewing type things, maybe a little serging, maybe a little embroidery. So come to that and be inspired with lots of maybe new to you, maybe not, but maybe if you've seen it and you kind of forgot about it, and like, oh yeah, I always wanted to try that. So you'll get to see my 11 favorite things. That'll be in June. No TT&T in July. Hi, Carol from California. Okay, you're pretty far away too, but I think Washington State still has you beat. All right, without further ado, we are going to talk about this beautiful quilt behind me. I saw this on Instagram a few months ago, decided it had to be mine. This is called Letra, and I'm going to put the pattern here so you can see what the pattern looks like. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. I got a demo or two and things to talk about. But this is, I pieced this and I quilted it. We'll talk a little bit about the quilting as well. Let's see. So the first thing I want to mention is that we have, and stay right there, Gabriella, we have a kit with the pattern included. It has all the fabrics you're going to need for the front of the quilt. And the reason we did that, so if we can do an overhead, Gabriella, the reason we did that is because the pattern designer did something kind of interesting. You got the A, B, C, D here, and then the letters for the fabrics that she indicates in the pattern are A through V. But this A does not correspond with that A. This D does not correspond with that D. The fabrics are nowhere close. So, except for the pink and the white. So what I did, I probably spent an hour working through all of this, and I came up with a color chart with actual fabric. So if you were to buy the kit, you are going to get a color copy of this fabric chart. It tells you how much yardage we included and all the letters that you're going to use that color in. So this was invaluable. I made sure that we got a copy of each of these in the kit. You can buy the pattern all by itself, and you can go through what I did and figure out colors. I used a line of fabric called kitty litter, and it is so much fun. There's little cat faces and then just little dots. So I don't know if it's kitty or kitty litter, but in either case, it's adorable. So that's the kit. The kit is $75.76. The one thing today is we weren't able to get it online. So if you're interested in the kit, please call the store. We'll put the phone number up and for the store, and you can call it and you can order it that way. If you're out of town and want to get it, we just have a couple kits left. So we'll put the phone number up for you to call in and purchase the kit. Everything else that I'm going to talk about, you can buy online, but just not the kit. So hopefully that makes sense. So one of the things in this pattern, and you can just leave the camera there, but one of the things in this pattern, we've got some round things going on, and that's a little scary, and we're going to talk about that. So this is a full-size round thing, and then we've got a smaller one and an even smaller one, and then we have some quarter square circles, kind of a drunkard's path kind of thing. And in the pattern, of course, she gives you the patterns. And what I did is I took this to my printer and I copied it onto, what am I trying to say? Cardstock. So it was better to have a template with cardstock than with just plain old paper. So that's a little tip there. And there's 2 of those for all the different pieces. But what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about how to sew this thing together. We're going to stay on the overhead. So we've got this piece and we've got this piece. And you got to sew them together. Like, oh, where do I even begin? So let me grab my scissors. Sorry. Thought I had everything I needed. Oh, they're in front of the machine. So what we're going to do to sew these 2 pieces together, I got a little extra that can go away. This is how I sew curved pieces together. First thing I do is I pick up one piece, I find the halfway mark, and I cut a little triangle out of that corner. I'm sorry, yeah, out of the halfway mark. You could see that. I'll put it down here. You could see that. And then I do the same thing. So if this is the pie, this is the pie crust. So I'm going to do same thing with the pie crust. Cut a little triangle. Yes, you could use pins. I just found this to be faster and easier for what I wanted to do. And then, Gabriella, I forgot to bring pins. Isn't there some pins up here somewhere? Thank you. Oh, really good pins. Really good pins. Okay, nice and long. Okay, so I'm going to put a pin there. And by the way, whenever I pin, you know, I learned how to quilt I learned how to make clothes from my mom, and she would always pin parallel to the seam. But as quilters, we always pin perpendicular to the seam. And then I'm going to put another pin. You're like, okay, how is that going to go onto here? So I promise you, it's going to happen. And funny thing happened this morning when I was doing this demo. I sewed the whole thing. Turned out my needle wasn't threaded. Yes, indeed, happens to everybody. They love the fact that happened to me, because it usually happens. They figure it doesn't happen to me, but it happens to everybody else. But no, happens to Mary-Jeanine too. So you could put as many pins or wonder clips as you want, but that's good enough for me. And we're going to sew that. So Gabriella, we're now going to walk over to the sewing machine, and I have to go the other way. All right. So I wanted to say real quick that this machine is the Janome 6700. I went out to the front floor and I got the machine that I sew on at home, so I would feel comfortable with it. But there's one thing that I love that I want to talk to you about. So this is an HP foot. You can't get it on very many of the Janomes, but you can get it. It looks kind of like a featherweight foot the way it is. And it's a scant 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the foot to the needle, which I love. But check this out. Watch carefully. Press a button and you can change out the plates. It comes with 3 plates. This one has you could do zigzag or decorative stitches. The second plate has just a single hole if you're quilting with a straight stitch. But this is probably the plate I use the most. It's the HP foot. It goes with the HP plate goes with the HP foot. And I probably use this more than anything else. And so one of the reasons I love this foot, not only for a scant 1/4 of an inch, but allows me to do curves really, really well. So here I am. I want to sew. Can we see this? Okay, yeah. I want to sew with the pie crust on the top, but so I can do it this way. When I pin this side, and I still want to sew with the pie crust. Normally you would flip this over and sew to the other side, but I want the pie crust on top. So I'm going to sew this other side this way. So my extra fabric is to the right of the foot, but that's okay. You know, there's plenty of room over here and you can do that. But right now I'm going to sew here. So here we go. We're going to start. And why did I put that V in the center? For starters, I put it because I wanted to match things up, but also, because that reminds me that I'm starting in the center. Why am I starting in the center? If I were to start sewing this curve from here and go all the way around, by the time I get to the end, you may or may not match. But I figure if I'm sewing half of the seam, I'm more likely to be successful. That is something that I do all kinds of situations. Whenever I have a scary looking seam, I will sew it from the center to the one side and from the center to the other side. So there's a tip for you. So I can see that I have a lot of extra fabric right there. So I think I must have pinned that wrong. I'm just going to leave it unpinned. And since I'm right there and I don't want to run over a pin, I'm going to start sewing. And whenever you sew curves, you kind of lift up the top piece and just let it go down as you're sewing. You don't try to sew flat, flat, flat the whole time. So you can see I'm kind of holding it in different ways. And I would highly recommend, if you ever going to sew a curve, sew some practice curves first and make sure that you understand how your machine works and doesn't work on that curve before you go to the real fabric. And I practiced there's 4 different types of curves, and I practiced them all on just junky fabric before I cut into my good fabric. The kit we're giving you has exactly how much fabric you need. There will be some leftovers, but there are some pieces where you will use exactly what you need. So you really have to put your brain, put your thinking pants on. Somebody said the other day she needed to put her patient pants on, and I'm like, oh, I like that. So you got to put your thinking pants on for this. So I'm going to cut my thread, and here it is. That's half of it. Pretty darn good curve, if I do say so myself. And when I go to press it, but I know that the fingers I'm really careful because it's all biased. So if you push it too hard, it's going to be way out of whack. So finger press it and then hit it gently with an iron. And if it looks perfect, then maybe hit it with some mist and hit it again. So you can do the same thing. I'm not going to do it, but just as an example, again, you want the pie crust on top. So in this case, when I start to sew, I'm going to sew with my extra fabric to the right, but that's okay. There's plenty of room. It's really okay. So yeah, that's, I think, everything I wanted to say about sewing those curves. Any questions, type them up for me. Let me know. I'm going to get back to my spot over here. Thank you for the pins. Say it again. No, don't need the machine. Do we? Oh no, I do need the machine. Sorry, I do need the machine for the last demo, so we're good. Okay, so we're gonna head back over to the big screen. Thank you very much. And yeah, we're going to use the machine at the very end of the session here. So let's see if we had any questions. Jacksonville, hi everybody, Michelle and Crystal River. And yeah, all right, Coco. Thank you all for showing up on the Memorial Day weekend. I was told today that I'm not wearing the right color, so I apologize for that. I'll wear red, white, blue in June just to make up. All right. So the kit, did I tell you the kit's available for $75.76 minus your 20%. And if you want the kit for Letra, which is the quilt behind me, you're going to want to call the store to make sure you get it, because we can't put it online today. I wanted to talk a bit. Can we get a close up here about the quilting? We had a quilt hanging recently with cute little Easter bunny rabbits, and she had used this scallop stitching on her quilt, and I thought that was really cute, and I wanted to give it a try. So I did the scallop stitching with my walking foot, and on this machine. I have a quilting machine, but I used my walking foot on my Janome. This is Minky. And if anybody tells you that Minky is hard to work with, you can just tell them you don't believe them, because this is Minky and then batting. I just finished 2 quilts for Project Linus last night that just had Minky and the quilt top, and they worked fine. But I wanted this a little more substantial, and so I put batting in there too. And I wanted to talk, we can back it up now. I wanted to talk a bit about how to quilt with a walking foot. So some would say you could start at the top and just draw, walking foot all the way down to the bottom. I would not recommend that. What I would recommend, let's do a full-on shot here, Gabriella, is find a place on your quilt where you can sew equal distance from the next place. So I sewed a line on this seam and on that seam and so forth, okay? And then I came back and I did halvesies. So I kind of eyeballed where the halfway mark between those two are, and I sewed there, and I sewed there, and so I did halvesies. You could be done, or you could say, no, I want more quilting, so I did halvesies again. And when I say I did halvesies, I tried to use that bar that comes with your walking foot as a guide. I don't know why, but I have trouble with it. It just doesn't work like I want it to. So what I do is I'm watching my walking foot going down the center between 2 lines, and I just try to keep it straight. And I feel like I did a pretty good job. So if you trust your eyes and go down the center. So I could have said, no, I want more, and I could have put more lines, but in this particular instance, no, I'm good. That was enough. So the point here is not to start at the top and work your way down, but to do some big lines, and then half of that, and so forth. And I think you'll get a better result from that. So yeah, any questions, let me know. And I think that's everything I wanted to say about the Letra quilt. I love this quilt. I just think it's all made out of 1 line of fabric, which is kitty litter. And you, of course, if you just want to buy the pattern, we have a couple patterns without the kit that you can certainly purchase if you want to do that. So I'm going to take this quilt down. We'll talk about the next one. I scooch everything back, so now I've got to straighten it up. So this is a Raggedy String Quilt. I've actually been talking about this idea for years and years. Some of you may recognize it. However, the sample that's on the handout, I'm finally decided I'm sick to death of that sample. I wanted something a little different. And so I made this quilt instead. It's quilt as you go. So it marries 2 ideas. It marries the quilt as you go string quilt and the Raggedy idea of a quilt where you clip all the seams and they bloom, so to speak. And so it marries those 2 ideas. And this was the overall design of it is a little different than I've ever made with the bullseye. I probably had it upside down. I probably want that bullseye over here, but it doesn't matter. And this is another version. I didn't hang it, but it's the same idea. But I My daughter made this quilt, and we put too far into the seam, and you can see the seam is, I probably camp years and years ago. She was probably in high school at the time, and we taught this kid camp together. I love this quilt for so many reasons. One of them is that it's a great quilt to teach kids how to sew for various reasons. For starters, if you've ever helped a kid, if you ever taught children how to sew, you realize that they can't sew a straight line unless you draw it on a piece of paper. I don't know why that is, but they can't sew straight lines. And so this quilt allows them to make a beautiful quilt without having to sew straight lines. Number two, it uses up lots of scraps. This is a string. It's what we call, quilters we call strings. If they're long, straight, for my little demo. You have done something like this before, but just in case, maybe I've got some tips for you that you don't know about. So first of all, how big do I make these blocks? I like to say you make them as big as your favorite ruler. My current favorite ruler is an 8.5, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But maybe back then my favorite ruler was a 7.5, and that's why I cut these 7.5. This is an old demo. So just any old backing fabric, because that's going to be the back of your quilt. This is a great place to use up your leftover bits of batting. So let's say you've made a quilt and you've got, 10, 15 inches off on the left that you cut off. Save it and chop it up into squares for this. So I like to leave about 1 inch on all 4 sides for my batting. And then finally, let's look at this quilt again real quick, Gabriella. You notice the quilt has a center piece, and that kind of gives the pattern a pattern. Yeah, it's not just a bunch of old colors. And then this one, same thing. You really notice that center piece in each block that gives you a nice pattern, a place for your eye to rest, as they say. So that's what this piece, overhead shot, that's what this piece is going to be. I chose yellow again. Yellow seems to stand out nicely. And then you start taking more strips. They could be any width, any length. A lot of times I chain sew this. If I had a really long piece of pink, I would just add it to a bunch of squares at once, one after the other. So this is where you sew. I would highly suggest a walking foot, because you're going through 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. So you want to consider using your walking foot for that. So no, there's no wrinkles. And then that gets folded over. You can either finger press it or do a bunch and then iron it. Just work your way out. Another great thing to use up is squares. So if you have a bunch of rags, strip bits that are squares, they work great on the corner. You just cut them in half on the diagonal. This is a really sad looking square, but maybe that's how it started. I don't know. But you get the idea. Another thing is, let's look at this one. I didn't make it all the way to the edge, but that's okay, because the edges are going to get ragged, and you'll never know that this block didn't have fabric all the way to the end, the corners. So that's very handy. So, and then back to this one, you could see, hopefully, maybe, let me put it on white. You could see that, that blue didn't make it all the way to the edge, but again, you're going to be clipping those edges, and it's not going to show at all. So here's another option. Instead of diagonal, you could just do a rail fence where it's just straight pieces. Either way, either one works. So once you have made this ugly thing, then you're going to flip it over, take that favorite ruler again, and clean it up on all 4 sides. I wanted to show this one because this batik was really light and lightweight, and it, I don't know, for whatever reason, didn't go to the end, but that's okay, because again, you're going to rag the edges. So I cut it the size I want, and this won't ever show on the front, the fact that it didn't go all the way to the edge. Yeah. So once we've trimmed it, then of course the biggest difference between this and any other quilt is normally we sew right sides together, but in this case, you're going to sew wrong sides together. I like to do about it's probably about a 5/8 seam, but you know, your mileage may vary. It could be whatever you want it to be based on, you wouldn't want to go too far because you've got batting there. You don't want your batting to show up in your raggedy edges. But mine was probably about 3/4, or sorry, 5/8 or so. And then finally, when we talk about cutting the seam, and I have to find my scissors, and I had them, there they are. I'm dropping it. That I would recommend. They are Fisker's rag cut scissors or short snips, and the reason we like them is they're spring loaded. So when you pull, you cut, and then they open automatically, which is really good on your hands. For me, I promised myself I wouldn't cut more than 3 rows each night, so it took a little while to get through the whole quilt. I just finished it like 2 weeks ago, and then every night I would cut 3 rows while I'm watching whatever TV, and then after, I don't know, a week or so, I was finished with the quilt. So that's how we snip. Most importantly though, when you snip a rag quilt, you want to cut diagonally on your fabric. If you cut straight into the grain, it's not going to rag very much. It's just going to kind of lay there. And in fact, I did that somewhere. But if you cut it on the bias, if you cut your fabric, you know, go in and cut on the bias, you'll get a nicer blow. Fabric is already on a bias, so I can cut straight in perpendicular to the seam, and it will rag nicely because I'm cutting it on the fabric bias, if that makes sense. So that was my tip for cutting a raggedy anything. You want to cut your fabric on the bias. You're going to wash and dry this quilt to get it to bloom. You need to know how to clean out your filter on your wash machine, and of course clean out your lint. My filter on my wash machine actually wasn't too bad at all, but that's probably because I took this outside and I shook it like crazy. It was out in the garden, and then I washed it. Filter wasn't too bad, but the dryer had about 1 inch of lint on it in about 30 minutes of drying. So yeah, so it does put off a lot of bits. So you're going to be sure that you get all that out of your washer and dryer before you do your next load of whatever. All right. So that is the Raggedy Quilt. Again, that was on the handout. If you just joined us and don't know where the handout is, Gabriella is going to put a link up one more time. And that was the first page of my free handouts. So we will post that in case you don't have that pulled up on your screen already. So that was my raggedy. I also make bags based on the same idea, and we'll talk about that one of these days. Any questions? We'd love to hear from you. And then I've covered everything up over here. Ha. Okay. Next order of business. This is a byAnnie. And this is the pattern, which of course we sell, byAnnie, a place for everything 2.0. I'm going to show you, yep. And so this is the store sample. This blue, we want the blue with the blue binding, and this is going to be here at the store if you want to look at it personally. But I'm going to talk about the other one for just a minute. Whenever I make a byAnnie bag, I always make 2 in parallel because there's so much instructions and my brain is working so hard. I'm like, if I'm going to work this hard to make 1 bag, I might as well make a second one, and it barely takes any more time than making that first one. The whole reason I wanted this bag was I take English paper piecing with me on my trips on the summer and my camping trips, and the box that I had wasn't really working very well anymore. So this is leftover bits from a quilt that I made my sister, and I had sewn it all up into a bit of fabric. So I quilted it and made this bag out of it. So this bag has 2, whoops, I got it upside down, sorry. 2 vinyl pockets, and then a mesh pocket that's not without a zipper. And then on the outside, so that's 3 pockets. And then here's a zippered pocket on the outside 4. and then a non-zippered pocket 5. I probably will sew a little line here so I have 2 smaller pockets. But anyway, it's called a place for everything. And I didn't put on the shoulder strap like I did on. Of course, we've got the handles, but I've also got a really nice shoulder strap that, of course, gets longer if you need it to get longer, right? It's got the same pockets on the outside. Let's do an overhead shot. Wait till you see what's inside this thing. It is crazy. These are called pages, and there's 4 of them. And so I still got the same pockets, well, almost the same pockets as the other one. But these pages, which, by the way, can come out if you don't need them on a particular trip. But if you do need them for your, I don't know, knitting needles, you know, various little EPP projects, whatever, you've got these 4 pages. So you've got all kinds of little pockets. We've got mesh pockets, zippered pockets, non-zippered mesh pockets. Got 2 pockets. We got a 3-pocket page. So, oh my gosh, so many choices. There are 19, I counted, there's 19 pockets. Things about this bag. I want to talk about the quilting on this. I think you could see, I'm going to bring this up a little more. Can you see the diagonal stitching? So we're going to talk about that. Whenever you make a byAnnie bag, after you've cut out all your pieces, your first order of business is to quilt through your soft and stable and your 2 layers of fabric. So we've got something that, if you're not familiar with soft and stable, it is a miracle fabric. I love this stuff so much. It's perfect for bags. It's exactly what it's called. Soft. It's very mushy, but it's stable. It straightens out, and your bag will stand up, where a lot of times we make a bag with batting and it just falls over because it has no structure. So soft and stable has structure. Another reason I like this is I have oftentimes made tote bags with Quilt As You Go, and you don't have to put an extra piece of fabric down below when you put all your pieces on top, because this will not get chewed up by your feed dogs, and you won't have a bunch of batting, you know, bits in your feed dogs, because it's stable. So this is great for Quilt As You Go tote bags or anything else, really. So I always have some on hand. It comes in plain, 1-side fusible and 2-side fusible. So whatever, I don't usually buy the fusible. I don't really need it, but there's certain projects that may call for fusible. So we have all of those. And yes, Bozel makes a very similar product. They're similarly priced. So whatever the pattern calls for, or whatever you've got extra, that's what you should use probably. Okay, so I was going to tell you about the diagonal seam. Gabrielle, I meant to send you this link, but you can type it in for me. So you can take a screenshot of this, or you can write it down. tinyurl.com/M, D, diagonal, M, Q. Okay, and what that will do is take you to a blog post on our website that will tell you everything you wanted to know about diagonal cross hatching. Now, why would I want diagonal cross hatching? Let's do a big shot here. Gabrielle, yeah, thank you. So let's say you bought a panel. Let's say it's Winnie the Pooh or Santa Claus or something, you know, maybe a sunset scene. Do I quilt through it? Do I echo? I want the same density throughout, but I want it to look nice, but I don't really want the quilting to be center stage. I want the panel to be center stage. That's for starters, or anytime you need to quilt something fast. I love diagonal. I've never seen it anywhere else. So I developed this blog post to tell you everything about it. But so it's the same density throughout, but for me, the diagonal lines elevate it more than the 45. So normally when you see cross hatching, it's at a 45-degree line. So it's really just boxes turned sideways, but the diagonal makes diamonds. So I like my diamonds. So I just think it's a little more elevated than 45-degree. So I tell you in this blog post how to find those lines with your ruler. And I tell you how different ways to mark it. And then we talk about different kinds of stitches you could use. And then we talk about, fix my mic. How's that? I had it to my skin. Okay, so the blog post tells you what kind of, how to mark your fabric, lots of ways to mark it. It talks about how big, basically, this is probably about 1 3/4 or 1.5 inches apart, these lines. It's a small project. If I'm going to do a big quilt, my lines may be 2.5 or 3 inches apart. So lots of, but I'm not sure I've got a sample of the twin needle on my blog post. So somebody remind me to put that on my, change that to my blog post. I just real quick want to show you this bag. So I'm leaving July 1st-ish for camping for 6 weeks. So that's for this one. But I'm also going to be doing a river cruise down the Danube, and I didn't want anything too big. So I made a nice small little, there's 2 zippered pouches and then a handle. And I realized that if I sewed up the sides on this, I really wouldn't be able to get in. So I left it open, but then I sewed some big snaps on the sides so I can close it up, and my English paper piecing can go in this little guy here. And then I use cotton handles. I want to talk about webbing for webbing. But basically webbing is in 2 categories. It's either cotton webbing or nylon. We have some brand new shiny, I don't know what we call that shiny new webbing, herringbone, that is beautiful and it's soft and it's perfect. But if you're purchasing nylon webbing, I would highly recommend you cover it with some type of fabric, because it's kind of rough on the shoulders when you've got to put on your handbag or your bag over the shoulders. So byAnnie, in the pattern, she tells you how much webbing to buy. And then she tells you if you want to cover it with these beautiful handles, you're going to need to cut your fabric. She says 2 3/4. So I did, folded it over, sew down the side. So now I've got to get this webbing into this strap. So here's what we're going to do. This is on my favorites page. If you don't have a bodkin in your life, you need one, and I'm going to show you how it works. So we've got a circle on one side and these little grabby teeth on the other, and then in between is a piece of metal. So if I squeeze that, this piece of metal comes up and keeps it tight. So what that does for us is squeeze that tight, and now I can't let go. So what we're going to do here, if I want to turn this tube inside out, is I'm going to insert my piece backwards, kind of. And when it gets inside, I'm going to give it some fabric to chew on, just like that. And then I have to pull that metal piece up from the inside. There it is. I can feel that it's in there. So now I can feed my tube onto the bodkin. Here's the other end of my bodkin, and now it's a teeny bit fussy. Use my fingernails, and here we go. So now I've just flipped over this this piece, and she will tell you, and I forgot, you're going to press that seam open before you do that, and then you're going to press it again so everything's nice and flat and beautiful. Let's pretend we did that. And then second step, we're going to grab the webbing with our teeth. There it is. And again, I'm going to push my little round piece down. Somebody told me this morning, I've had one of these for years and I never knew how to use it. So this is how you use it. They're $2 or $3. They're really inexpensive. It's on my favorites page. And then that gets fed too long, but you get oh, so professional. So that's how you use a bodkin. Everybody should have at least one in their sewing kit. Somebody else said this morning that she had one from her mother and she had no idea what this was until this morning. So that's what it is. It's called a bodkin, B-O-D-G-I-N. Yes, thank you. Bodkin, K-I-N. Yes, that's what that is, and it helps you turn loops, turn straps, turn tubes. That's what I'm trying to get to. But again, this one was cotton webbing out of my stash, so I didn't feel like I needed to cover it. But if it's nylon and it's not that beautiful soft herringbone, you're going to want to cover it. A few more demos. I can't go through the entire byAnnie bag. It was not a short process, as you can imagine. It was an engineering marvel, but I can show you some different things regarding it. Somebody asked today if she has videos. She does. As you work your way through the pattern, there'll be times in the pattern where she'll have a little circle and she says, if you're having trouble, watch this video. And it'll be a barcode that you can click on and you can watch the video for certain parts of the instructions. But I'm not sure if there's a video for the entire thing. Since I have this in my hand, let's talk about zippers next. You've probably seen zipper by the yard and you're like, how on earth? Because when you purchase it, it's the tape and there's a little baggie of heads. You're like, I don't know how to put these heads on this tape. This is leftover tape. So it was cut off. This morning I was having trouble showing everybody. And so what I did is I cut the zipper part off just a little bit to make it easier to feed. Sometimes I don't have to do that. If I hold in my mouth just right, sometimes I do. Today I did. So this is the round part of the head. I like to feed through there. I think I'll put my glasses on just for good luck here. And fed in like that. And this may not be exactly the same. You may like waste a ½ inch on one side or the other. And sometimes it takes 3 hands to hold this just right. But once you do it once, then the second and third and fifth time is way easier. There it is. So I'm going to do that again in case you didn't quite see. And so, like I said, I'm losing a ½ inch there somewhere along the line, but it's worth it because. And then while I'm having good luck, I'm going to go ahead and feed all the rest of my heads onto the zipper while I'm there, so I don't have to deal with it again later on, because it takes a little practice. The first and second time are a little rough, and then after that, you're like, oh, well, this was easy. What was I complaining about? See, I didn't get it right that first time, so you got to play a little bit. I will get it, I promise. So that gets fed in through the side hole, and we have all these in all different colors. byAnnie has really nice ones. And what I really like about the byAnnie set is that they have nice big tabs to hold for your fingers. They're nice and big, and has a hole big enough that you can put a little tie on, a little handmade tie or something else. Anyway, so I've already loaded the other two. As you can see, they're not loaded on exactly the same, but that's okay. It doesn't matter, because you're going to cut off what you need, and then next one, and so forth, it'll all work out. Even if you have bubbles like that, it's just fine. So we sell 2 or 3 different brands. This one is from Pam Demore, and then we have ones from byAnnie and actually a third one, but I can't remember the name of it. Sally Tomato, thank you. And it's you get yards and yards with each one. So for this particular bag, it called for 2 packages, but then I had enough left over for this bag and enough left over for these 2 zippers. So there's a lot of zipper tape in there. Yeah. Any questions? You guys are very quiet today. You got to come up with a question or 2 for me. Okay. Continuing on, a few more things in regard to the bag. Sewing on vinyl. It's a little scary if you've never done it, but it's actually not hard at all. On my machine, again, the 6700, I was able to use just the HP 2 foot, which is an accessory foot, but it's a narrow, it's just like the HP foot I've got on there, but it's a walking foot HP foot. And I used that and I didn't have any problems. But if you are having problems with your machine, you may want to get a Teflon foot. that might look like this. Another option, if you're just doing a one and done and don't want to spend the money on a Teflon foot, you can put masking tape on the bottom of your foot. Also, this plastic vinyl comes with paper, just as a matter of course. When they sell you a yard of vinyl, you get that yard of paper, and you can sew with that on the bed of your machine, so this can't stick to your machine. What I did when I was sewing, for example, well, this has all mesh, but when I'm sewing something like this, I'm putting, and I have to put the vinyl toward the bed of the machine. I just kind of lift it up on the left a little bit so it's not smack dab on the bed of my machine and sticking, because it likes to stick to things. Also, of course, you're not going to pin it. So you're going to use a Wonder Clip, and these are 3 different sizes that we sell here, small, medium, and large. I have all different sizes and I use them all the time. It does make a little bit of a mark, but I believe that mark goes away. But you can also just clip it on the very edge. You don't have to clip it all the way in, just because I did. And be careful, because once you sew it, you're putting holes in that vinyl. So try not to sew it more than once. Yeah, so that's, oh, and then one more thing. They asked me this morning when I was telling them at the machine department, I was sewing with vinyl. They said, oh, you need vinyl needles. I'm like, I've never heard of a vinyl needle. Well, what they meant was anti-glue. Oregon calls them anti-glue needles, and Schmetz calls them super non-stick. But basically, they won't stick to things, especially if you've got a lot of fusible, not in this project, but other projects, there may be fusible. This doesn't allow the sticky stuff to stick to the needle. So that's kind of handy. So that might be something you want to add to your pile of needles. And every once in a while, you need a non-stick needle. All right, I'm not seeing any comments. I need comments. One more thing, I believe, in regard to this. Marking. So talk about marking. Any design you're going to want to quilt on. Of course, you want to use a marker that doesn't show, and you cannot see any of marker of what I used. And I used a chalk. This is a chalk owner. It's a little heart shape. It's very cute. And there's a wheel at the bottom that dispenses chalk. I would recommend either the pink or the blue. They're on my favorites page. The yellow, some people tell me that it's hard to get out. And then the white, I don't buy white because a lot of what I sew on is white. So I can't, a white chalk marker is not very useful, but you could buy white if you want. But anyway, that pretty much goes away just with the wear and tear. If you're working on the bag, now it's gone. So yeah, chalk owner. If we're out of those, another option is the clover. It looks like a thumb drive. It looks like your thumb. That's about the size of it. And that works pretty well too, but I just happen to like those a lot. Length of stitch on the vinyl. Thank you, Mo. Yeah, I would say, well, if I'm using my walking foot, I'm up to about a 3.0 anyway. So yeah, definitely a longer stitch. Sounds like you have worked with vinyl before. Yes, a longer stitch. You don't need a lot of tiny stitches with your vinyl. And if you use lots of little tiny stitches, that vinyl may just tear apart because there's really no fibers holding it together. So all of a sudden I'm really hot in here. Are you hot, Gabrielle, or is it just me? Okay, it's just me. All right, so thank you for the question. Length of stitch, yep. Again, byAnnie bags, if you've never made one, they are amazingly well written. If you are a beginner sewer, I'm not sure I would start with something like this. However, I'm starting to teach a class called byAnnie Project Bag, and it is probably one of the easiest things you can make that is a byAnnie pattern. And you have a little bit of homework. You've got to cut your pieces and quilt your piece before you come to class. But in 3 hours, pretty much everybody had a finished bag. And I probably should have brought one, and I didn't have it here. But you can look it up, Project Bag 2.0, and I'll be teaching it again in August or September. So that might be, if you really want to get into this, that might be something that you want to look into, is taking that class with me, and I'll help you decode the byAnnie bags, because they're awesome. They're just about the best written bags out there, patterns out there. But yeah, they're not for the faint of heart if you're a beginner sewer. If it's well written though. All right, what is next? Spool feeders. I want to talk about thread. And I have a lot of examples here, but This is something you may or may not have ever heard of, but they make they put thread on spools in different ways. Well, basically 2 ways. This is, they can put it on what they call cross wound. So it's like you see a bunch of V's on the thread when you're looking on it. So it's back and forth, back and forth. That's cross wound. There we go. Good idea. Okay, let's see if we can, see if it comes into focus here. Do. And I need to move it. There it is. Okay, well, this has been wound back on several times. Let's see if I can find a better one. Here's a better one, where it's cross wound. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There's only 2 ways to go. It's either this or it's a king tut where everything is stacked. So it's stacked on top of you, up, and then down, and then up and down. Whereas the crosswise is more like V's. If you look at the thread, you know, it's called cross wound. Okay, so what's the difference and why do I care? First of all, let me say this at the beginning. If you're not having any problems with your thread going through the machine, the thread is not breaking, thread is not shredding, then you don't have to worry about any of this. But oftentimes with our very finicky high-end machines, and what the problem or a vertical, or in the case of my 6700, we've got these cone holders in the back. So it's a vertical pin. Right now, let's just talk about horizontal versus vertical. This King Tut and all the stack spools, they really want to be on a vertical pin, okay? And this is how I remember that, because for a while there, I was getting confused. I grew up on my mother's featherweight. And featherweights, we've got one right here. There you go. It's a featherweight with, it only has a vertical. We don't have to move a thing. It's right there, Gabrielle. It has a vertical pin, right? That's what some of us grew up on these. And back in the day, all you could get was Coats and Clark or 10 for $1 at Kmart, right? And they were all stacked. So that's great. But then they started coming up with these cross wound, and cross wound really want to be on a horizontal pin. And here's why. Let's pretend this is a spool of thread and it's stacked. So it comes off the spool, very happy, goes through your machine, everybody's happy. But if you put a stacked spool on a horizontal pin, this is what happens to your thread. It gets twisted. Every time it comes off the spool, it introduces another twist to your thread. It doesn't make the thread very happy, and when it goes through your machine and it gets to the needle, it's tired, it breaks, it shreds. Again, if you're not having that problem, ignore me for the next 5 minutes. If you are having a problem, this is what you need to look for. So when you're buying thread at the store, you're like, okay, do I have a vertical or horizontal, or which machine am I using? Oh, that machine has a horizontal. I need to be looking at cross for you. And here it is. I've got 2 solutions for you. We've got these nifty little things. I think there's a few left on my favorites page, and we will definitely get more. But let's do an overhead. So it's a pin that has a little, and there's 2 of them. So if you have 2 machines, or you could share with a friend. And I'm going to scoot this machine over just a little bit so you can see with a full-on shot, Gabriella. Sort of. Yeah, there you go. So if I had a horizontal pin, let's pretend this is a horizontal pin, and I could put this on and I turn it into a vertical pin, or vice versa. If it's a vertical pin, it turns it into a horizontal pin. Love, love, love it. I have one of these on each machine. I still haven't talked about cones. I will in a minute, I promise. But what this allows me to do, because I don't want to put a King Tut on a vertical pin, I'm getting you confused, because what happens is, the reason I haven't talked about cones yet is that thread comes off the top the way it would as if you were on the horizontal. this cone go off the top of the edge, and I don't want that. I hope I'm not too confusing here. There's only really two ways to go. You're either running the thread off the top of the spool or you're running it off the side. Stacked wants the side of the spool. Stacked S, 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 there you go. And cross-wound wants to come off the top of the spool. So we're going to undo this, and that's happy like that. Cones automatically work that way. One more idea. Let's say you bought a big cone like this, right? I bought this embroidery thread. I bought a 8-pack of different primary colors, but man, the cone is big. That's okay. This is called a Superior Threads thread stand. You may have a thread stand that, thank you. You may have a thread stand that doesn't look like this. It's just a heavy base with the thread comes up. That's fine. But the reason I love my Superior thread stand is this piece unscrews and then goes into the side. So then I can have my King Tut, and I use a lot of King Tut, believe it or not, for quilting. So this is important to me. So I put my King Tut on here and run it through the machine. So how do you marry a thread stand to a machine? I literally put mine kind of on the back corner of my machine. I put it right about here. The thread comes up through this hole and then continues on its journey just the way any other thread would go on its journey. So this actually lives next to my embroidery machine. And then on my, Juki long arm and my sit down long arm and my Janome 6700, I have this little guy, which allows me to switch things out from vertical to horizontal, and I can use all my threads and everybody's happy. So hopefully that made sense. I keep freezing. Oh no. Okay. Well, we'll do what we can over here. A A twist and a Z twist makes a difference too. S twist. Avi, I've never heard that, so I need to find out what the A twist and Z twist is. Thank you, Charlene. I'm looking forward to the river cruise, starting in Budapest and ending in Nuremberg. And then I'm going to visit my friend Thomas, who used to be a student here, and now he is from Cologne, and he's back in Cologne, so we'll visit him for a day or two. So if you're watching, Thomas, good to see. I think that's everything. Oh, one more thing about thread. Got a whole pile. This is my bag of thread that I bring to machine quilting. So let's do an overhead, Gabriella. This is a spool of thread that I purchased at Joann's. And the reason I'm telling is we don't sell anything like this. Up, okay. Lower, okay. It says Americana, and then it says quilting thread. Okay, well, I'm making a quilt. I need quilting thread. Well, in very small letters, it says 100% glazed cotton. What that means is this thread is very stiff. It's been glazed, so it has a glaze in the inside the cotton, which makes it really nice for hand quilting, and it won't knot on you so much. But you do not want to use this on your sewing machine. Number one, it will lay down that glaze. It'll put that glaze slowly but surely inside your machine, which of course that will be an expensive repair. But also it sits on top of your quilt, and it really won't go in and out the way you want thread to do. It'll just kind of lay on top, and that's not very attractive. So for those two reasons, if you've got some of this thread and you're not a hand quilter or a hand sewer, give it to somebody who is, because you don't want to accidentally pick this up and put it on your machine. That's just like a PSA there that that even though it says quilting thread, it is not for machines. It is for hand quilting. Hopefully that made sense. I'll put everything back for my next time I need to teach machine quilting. And let me know if you have any questions. Hi, Gail from Fishkill. I think I'm going to be driving through Fishkill later on in the end of July. So I will wave as I go by. Got two more things I want to talk to you about. I put all this stuff away. I want to tell you about the next handout is called Tabebuia. Oh, and I guess I should show you the quilt. So if you don't have a handout, we're gonna put up the link one more time, so you can bring it up on a second device, or you can print it out. There we go. All right, hopefully you can see that. No problem. Yes. And got some pretty borders there. This darn thing's pretty big. This is called Tabebuia because that pretty yellow, the Tabebuia trees come out in February and March, and I was making this about the same time, so that's why I called it that. Somebody asked me how I got all these little circles in the quilting. I had a good nap that day, so those were all freehand circles. You just like a figure eight. You go around and you go around halfway, and then you build the next one. You go around halfway and you build the next one. So it's just a matter of getting them all about the same size, which it looks like I did mostly, but it's very much done by hand and with my eyes. So you too can do that if you practice enough, I promise. Let's see, what else did I want to say? This is inspired by a quilt that Bonnie Hunter has on her website from quiltville.com. Hers is called Dancing 9 Patches. And I made 16 patches because if you've been around me any length of time at all, you have seen me do these demos on 4 patches. And if I have four patches, they turn into a 16 patch. So I made this quilt with 16 patches instead of 9 patches. And then on top of that, each block has one piece of yellow here and one here and one here. And I don't know about you, but I feel like these 9 patches, these blocks just dance. Just the way it's set up. And if you look at the picture, they just, I don't know, they kind of dance. I forgot to change. I took a better picture of this quilt after this week, and I forgot to put it in this handout. Anyway, you'll see a better picture next time. Anyway, so that's a 16 patch and 2 pieces of yellow. That is all. As you me lately, this makes a great leader ender project. If you're going to make 4 patch blocks, you're going to start with, I didn't line these pieces up after I talked about it this morning. Here we go. So there's four 5-inch squares. You could do 4-inch, you could do 6-inch, you could do any size you want. By the way, and this is where we're headed. We're headed to 4 patches. So we're going to take a light over dark, right sides together, have a basket of these by your sewing machine. Every time you need a leader ender, this makes a great leader ender. You're going to sew a 1/4 inch on either side, 1/4 inch on either side. When you take it off the machine, you're going to cut that in half. Here we go. Here's one. Sewed it on either side, cut it down the middle parallel to your first 2 lines. You're going to end up with 2 of these and 2 of these. Hopefully that makes sense to you so far. Then you're going to take dark over light, turn this 90 degrees and sew here and sew here. So here we go. Here's one of those right there. Put everything else away. You're going to cut again parallel to the 2 lines you just sewed, and guess what happens? You get 4 of these puppies. 4 squares makes 4 patches. So I could put all of those together into one 16 patch, or I could take 4 other ones. Trying to get it so it matches. There we go. So anyway, that's a very simple way to make 4 patch. And if you've been with me any length of time, you've probably seen, I've probably made 8 or 9 different 16 patch quilts based on this method, and then just doing different things with them. So that is how I love to use up my scraps. So my scrap saving method has to do mostly with those blocks because they're just so useful. I think that's everything I wanted to say. I quilted each block with what I call my MJ flower. I don't know, it's yellow, it's mostly yellow, so it's hard to see. But if you've taken my machine quilting class, I've showed you how to make this flower. It's a 5-petal flower, and I just find it useful for so many different things. Send me an email and I'll send you a little sketch of that. My email and my website are at the bottom of every handout. Interesting back, lots of leftovers on the back. So there's that. Yeah. So if there's any questions, let us know. Do you use a zipper foot or double welt foot to sew bag zippers? Good question. for me on this 6700, I have an HP2 foot, which is a walking foot, but it's a narrow walking foot. So that's what I used. But if you were to use just a regular, any old machine, you could probably use a walking foot to put that on. You could use a zipper foot, but to me, a walking foot and moving the needle where I need it to be works just as well. And that way I don't have to pull up a third foot. I have a zipper foot and I rarely use it. I just find that I can move the needle on my walking foot and get what I need to do. So give that a try. Thank you for asking. Any chance you can make the handout about the direction of, wait a minute. We pull that up on the big screen here so we can see what that says. Any chance you could make a handout about the direction of thread? You mean what I just talked about? I don't know. I'm not sure if I know what you're asking. Yeah, what I just talked about. Yeah, we could do that. Or if you go to superiorthreads.com, Bob, who owns threads.com, and I highly recommend that. If you still have problems, let me know. One more thing before I let you go celebrate your Memorial Day weekend. I think we're going to go to the beach on Monday, and everybody says we're crazy, but we're crazy because we go to the beach like at 8 o'clock. We leave at 8 o'clock in the morning, get there at 9, and we're out of there by 11. And I swear we could sell our parking space for like $15 because everybody's trying to park at 11 o'clock at night in the morning. So nobody ever wants to go with us because it's too early, but I don't want to be in that much sun. So we go to the beach early. I don't know why this got all tangled up. What the heck is bobbin braiding? If you turn your handout one more time, bobbin braiding is we're using the bobbin winder to create some beautiful, it looks like it's braided, but really it's twisted work here. So here's another one that I used. In fact, I need to take this apart because that's what I was going to use. I'll use the other one. So how do we do bobbin braiding? We're actually using our bobbin on the machine, the bobbin maker, to do this. You know, bear with me. I forgot to reset all this when I oh, and there's that bobbin has thread in it. No wonder I'm having trouble. I'm just going to cut it off. So you need an extra bobbin. You need a paper clip. And for some reason, I'm having trouble. I don't know why this bobbin has thread in it. I didn't mean to grab one that had thread in it. And then we're going to undo this one from this morning's demo because I forgot to reset it up. And I'm just warning you, Gabriella, I may need your help. So what we're doing here is we're taking some thin trim and we're twisting it to make it shorter. So if I wanted a yard of trim, I'm going to need about 5 yards. Sorry, if I wanted a yard of braid, I need about 5 yards of trim. This, I just picked it up off the floor. It's a beautiful rainbow rat tail, and she cut me 4 yards of it. So it's going to be a little less than a yard of trim when we're done of braid. So Gabriella, you reach that. You're going to hold these 2 ends for me. And then let's see, can we show this machine? Where do I need to put the machine? There it is. Okay, so here it is. I've got a bobbin, and I'm sorry about the thread. I'm trying to cut off all the extra thread. I didn't have time to go get a new bobbin. Throw that away. Okay, so I've got a bobbin. I've got a paper clip that's in the little hole that's already pre-made in the bobbin. And so the paper clip is coming off the top of that bobbin. We're going to close it. This machine has its own separate bobbin motor. You're good. This is fine. Has its own separate motor, but you can absolutely do this with any machine. In fact, some machines that have a separate motor, it's not strong enough to do this, but this one happens to be strong enough. Let's see. Can we back the camera up a little bit? Yeah. So I'm going to press the button, Gabriella's holding the other two. So I have to get my husband to do this sometimes when I make a really long one. So I'm going to press the bobbin. Whoops. Okay, give me some slack. Give me some slack. Okay, so let's do it again. So you can see it's winding, it's winding, it's winding. I'm going to stop, and it's kind of twisted, but you're going to hand me that end, and I'm bringing the end that Gabriella was holding on to. I'm marrying it to the other end. Let's do a big shot here. And here it is. Now watch, I'm going to let go of the bottom. And this kind of all twists up. So you kind of give it some love here. It should get rid of this little, I might be twisted a little bit. So if I twist a little bit, and if I can't get rid of that little knot, then I'm going to take it apart and do it again. It's 5 minutes. But what I did here is I just created a braid with 4 layers of this rat tail trim. Hopefully that made sense. And if you want to see it again, just do rewind. Because no reason for me to do it again when you could do it on rewind. So yes, I do have a little bump there. So I would take this apart and redo it. It really doesn't take any time at all, as long as you have a second person holding the other end, because you want to do a nice long piece. Now, if this was long enough, I could use this for a crossbody bag, but it's not big enough for me because I'm 6 foot tall. Maybe for the shorter people it would work, but you could certainly, this was 4 yards. So maybe 5 or 6 yards. It could definitely be long enough to put a strap on my crossbody bag, which is what this is. So yeah, so I love this stuff for all kinds of reasons, but for a crossbody bag or for handles, a necklace, a bracelet, you could put beads on it. So give it a try. Again, any machine should work unless your a separate motor for your bobbin winding isn't strong enough. But for this machine, because I had a machine that was true, but this machine, it is strong enough, and I can wind, I can braid with this machine. And most machines, it doesn't have a separate motor, and it'll be just fine. So Linda, you said yes. So yeah, give superiorthreads.com a try and see what you think. That is everything I have. Hopefully you got inspired and you learned some new things. I hope got you out of here in 1 hour and 15 minutes. And hopefully if I was going in and out, maybe the rewind will have the whole thing. Keep my fingers crossed. Have a great Memorial Day, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in June. Take care. Bye-bye.